Sorry, I was on mute. Hey, everyone, it's Ryan from Rocky Mountain Cigar Show here, back for another Thursday night show. Hopefully, we don't have any audio issues with this guest. We have a man on tonight that spends his every waking second validating cigars for us to make sure they smoke great. But very quickly, thank you so much to all the show sponsors that really do make this show work, right? So we have Drew Estate. We have, I'm just going to go through them. We have Drew Estate. We have BAMF Cigars, ROCF Cigars. We also have K by Karen. Cannot forget about New Air Humidors. Description in the description below, you'll see a 15% off discount code for New Air Humidors. And we also have Christoph Cigars, and our newest one, they just have not gotten me their banner yet. McAuliffe Cigars. So absolutely grateful to have every single one of these sponsors on the show, supporting what we're doing. Now, without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump straight into this guest. Everybody knows who this guy is. There's no big surprise. It's Terrence Reilly from Aganorsa. Now, the real question is are we going to see chill Terrence, or are we going to see khaki pro Terrence tonight? I guess we shall find out and see. So hold on. Oh, this is fantastic. Awesome. All right. Let me see here. Now, for some stupid reason, my mouse is not working. Oh man, love technical issues. Let's reset this and turn this back on and see what we can get going. So let me see here. You've got to be kidding me. Oh my gosh, I hate technology sometimes. I cannot believe it. My entire mouse does not want to work right now for me clicking on absolutely anything. So let me try this. Come back in. There we go. Now it's going to work. Here we go. Let's bring on Terrence. Terrence, how you doing?
Good. How are you, sir?
Good. Sorry about that. We had some issues in the foreground. Let's go ahead and get the background back up and going. Perfect. Awesome. We're off to a great start, right? No audio. Everybody could hear you, other than the fact that I had a little fucking mouse problem. No big issues. So, Terrence, how are you doing today, sir?
Just living the dream. Living the dream.
It's the greatest night of our lives, right?
we're trying to make it be the greatest night of our lives. We weren't there to begin with.
Hey, but we are there now. So, Terrence, fresh off of Rocky Mountain Cigar Fest, why don't you just go ahead and let's just jump right in. Give us a little idea of what your thoughts are on this year's event versus previous year's event, and how did y'all do?
No, I'd say they're consistently a great event. I mean, I think they're well organized. I think that what they do is, considering especially the number of people there, and it's outside, which is another thing. You're always risking weather and things like that. They do an amazing job of getting people to go, of having it be exciting, of having people enjoy themselves. And on our end as manufacturers, it's nice to be able to kind of interact with people rather than just handing out cigars one after the next person. And then obviously you get to sell, so it's one of the biggest selling events for that kind of multi-vendor event that we do. And we've sold out the past 2 years. I've got to bring a little bit more product. I kind of underestimate what we'll have. I don't like sending stuff back. But we definitely could have had some more stuff there because it was, when I left, everything was gone.
But that's really kind of a great thing for you guys. I mean, I guess you always want to make sure you bring in enough product, but at the same time, it's always nice to go home empty, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think I can't use that as an excuse in the future. One, I have to bring more, and two, if we have to bring some back, so be it. I mean, I think it's a little lazy of me, to be honest with you, to say, well, we got to ship all that back. So I err on the side of caution. But this year, definitely, I mean, we were good for another 15 boxes at least had I brought more. So it was, it's on me to improve on that.
Now, were you offering everything 5-packs? Kind of what was the first thing that you noticed that sold out? And what was the last thing that was still there?
I mean, to be honest with you, I can't remember. We did all boxes. We had Anniversario, the new Anniversario Maduro. We had the Anniversario Corojo. We had the new Validation Series. And we did have 4-packs of the Validation Series you could buy. The boxes, for the most part, went before the packs. The packs kind of went towards the end, but I think that's partly because the people that knew they were going to buy cigars from us kind of ran up and bought boxes. They didn't want to pack, and the people that were kind of wandering around to see what was available and weren't sure what they were going to buy, they would come back and they would buy a pack. See, be like, all right, I'll try this out. I haven't had this brand before, or I love Aganorsa, but I want to buy 30 different other cigars as well from different companies, and so that pack kind of made it easier for them to get something from us without too much commitment.
What are you smoking tonight?
I'm not smoking anything. I was going to do this outside, but it's pouring rain, so I'm in the house and I don't have the ventilation to, do that. You would be able to see me. But I was smoking today. What did I have today? God, I can't remember. Oh, I actually had today. I had that's a beauty. She's a beaut, Clark. Is that the Connecticut? I can't see.
Yes, that's the Connecticut. The brand new Connecticut, the La Validation Connecticut.
It was in the Smoking Cigar of the Month Club as well.
Absolutely. I actually, crazy thing was, I went up to Tobacco Leaf because I love this cigar. This is one of my favorites in the morning. And I bought 5 of them. And then lo and behold, I opened up the Smoking Cigar of the Month Club and I got another one. So pretty stocked up. And I think I actually even have, 5 more of the Criollo coming as well. And the same thing from Smoking.
Nice. I was actually, for me today, I was validating the new Supreme Leaf Vitola that we'll have for next year. Usually we have 2 a year, and this year we only had 1 because we kind of got behind on things. So next year it'll be back, and we're going to go with a round edition this time instead of box press. So I was smoking some of those this afternoon.
Nice. Are we allowed to know what size that is going to be other than round?
Yeah, it'll be a Toro 6x52.
Perfect. Now, everybody watching tonight, you'll notice I'm a little bit more lit up in the back. I actually have all new lighting system, and I have a new camera. Please, everybody, be brutal. Tell me if this camera sucks, because I got a 30-day window to send it back to Amazon. So, Terrence, how does the camera look for you?
So far, so good. It looks good to me.
Perfect. Well, if Terrence is going to validate, maybe if we have no other show issues, maybe by the end of the show, we can get him to validate the show.
wait. Are you talking about that new camera you just flipped over to? Is that
this one right here? This is the new one.
The color is different. I don't know if that's good or bad, but the color is different than on the other one.
It is. So this one's actually a handy cam, and this one is $1,000 Nikon camera. So I'm trying to play around to see what combination works. My wife wants to use the Nikon camera, but I always have it out here. So I was just trying to see if these handy cams would work, but it's kind of put a weird yellowish tinge to me.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of Canadian public TV, it's like you kind of get that little from the 80s, you get that little, it's not the picture's clear. It just has that kind of those 80s movies, they have that kind of almost I don't know, that kind of coloration
to the look.
Yeah. I don't know. So absolutely. It's not bad. It just, once you flip over, it's a significant difference.
No, absolutely. and I actually have to, I think, play some of the camera settings. So you get to be the test pilot for this new lighting system I have and camera. So I hope you feel lucky.
Thank you.
Because we're going to be doing this. Now, I will have to say, meeting you at Cigar Fest was absolutely fantastic. It was great to see you when I walked up to the dojo studios to see you just kind of lounging out, not in khakis, and just kind of relaxing. How often does that happen inside the cigar world for you? Are you always kind of turned on to business and work mode?
I almost always wear khakis. I mean, it's unusual. I would say that is the only cigar event I can think of off the top of my head that I wear jeans to. Or if it's somebody else's event and it's not really necessary, you know, like when Espinosa, he was nice enough to have me when Guy Fieri was down for the La Zona Palooza. And I think I wore jeans for that. You know, I wore their T-shirt and the jeans for that. But I mean, generally speaking, for anything like that, I'm in khakis and a polo, pretty much for the most part.
I was shocked that I didn't see you in khakis at Dojo, to be very honest. But no, it was a great time. It was nice to finally meet you in person. I took a picture with you as well. So I did kind of geek out on you for like 5 seconds, and then we went back to normal. So it was really nice to have the privilege of actually meeting you in person, because I talked to you on the phone several times. I do have a few show requests here in the comments.
Nice.
Let's see here. This is coming from Kevin Shahan, so this means you absolutely have to listen. Here is what I need from Terrence. I need him to post new photos of himself on his Facebook. Everyone that interviews him uses the same photo. I have to concur on that. I could not. Every photo I saw taking a picture with a cigar, you didn't smile. And then the only other photos where you smiled were like ages ago. So we definitely need to update some, just maybe get yourself some professional stills and post them up so that way all us show people.
We got new ones. You got to ask for them. You got to ask me for it. That's what you need.
I figured they would be on Facebook.
No, but we have them. So please, anytime you need me smiling like a goofball, please, I have them.
Perfect, Kevin. So definitely reach out on that one. Let's see here. We have a lot of people loving the Aganorsa. Max Peters saying, hey, great, my man, fantastic guest. We got Bruce Stark saying hello to you as well. And let's see here. What is everybody validating tonight at home? And the lighting is a little hot, makes you look pink on the nightcap. I totally understand, and I don't disagree with you. I'm still fumbling around with the lighting. I work all day. I only get a few hours for this. So, however, it's better than what it is normally. So, Terrence, let's kind of just dive right in here, and let's talk about what it was been like for you to rebrand, or I should say, build a new style of branding with the exact same cigar. What has that been like for you?
It's been very rewarding, quite frankly. I mean, when I joined the company, the primary reason I joined is I saw that they had a big opportunity in the fact that the cigars were, besides the fact that I like them, but that doesn't make any difference. I was very impressed by the cigars. What's more important is that when you talk to retailers or you talk to consumers, they would generally have a high opinion of the tobacco in our cigars that we made for other people, but they wouldn't know much about the cigars that we made for ourselves. And that just didn't make any sense. So on the retailer side, they would say, yeah, you guys make great cigars, but it's kind of confusing. We don't understand all the different brands and names and things. And then on the consumer side, they'd say, "Oh, I love that brand, but I've never heard of you." And so that to me posed an opportunity, and that doesn't make any sense. I mean, that's kind of like Fuente not being well known, and then everybody knowing like Ashton or something like that. That doesn't make any sense. Fuente is making a lot of the Ashton. So that's a branding issue to me. And so that was something I felt I could help with. I could help work with our retail partners and get feedback and that kind of thing, and build up something that would be more coherent and relatable. And that what ended up happening is purely, I'm not that smart. It was mostly just from listening to our reps, to our retailers, to our consumers. We based it on the leaf, as that's what's in, as the tagline says, our leaf is our strength. And then you always need to have kind of one of those things as the anchor. It's either the product itself, some sort of personality, or a lifestyle. And no, I don't think anyone's aiming for a lifestyle of khaki and polos. And then I'm not that interesting as a person. So all we had was the product to rely on that. So unfortunately, that's where we excel, is the product and the quality of the leaf. And then we just tried to make it uniform, make it recognizable. I would say a big change that came about is making sure that the logo itself, the arm, was very prominent. And that was a result of COVID-19, where a retailer would do cash and carry, and the guys couldn't come in the store or whatever. And he'd have a customer call and say, hey, can I get a box of that cigar I buy every day? It's like, well, which one? It's the one in the corner on the right-hand side. He doesn't know the name of it. He doesn't know what it looks like. He doesn't know what size it is. And he smokes this cigar every single day. So for me, that was kind of a wake-up call. And that I think with the arm being prominent, at the very least, they'll recognize that. I don't know what the name of it is. Aga something. It's got the one with the big arm, the one with the arm holding the tobacco. Immediately, you would know as a retailer what they're talking about once they say something like that. And that's important, because how many times do you hear somebody go, oh man, I had this cigar, it was amazing. I can't remember what it's called. I can't remember what it tastes like. So all that hard work to create a great cigar, the guy loved it, and he doesn't even know what it's called, and he'll never buy it again probably. So that's kind of been our strategy, is to build on our strengths and to make it clear and coherent and recognizable, and that's basically the story.
So when you came on to Aganorsa, and we touched base on this a little bit when you originally were on the show, did you have in your mindset that you wanted to give a little bit more congruency throughout the branding, the labeling, or did that kind of come out over the last couple of years?
No. That was immediate. It was very clear immediately what the problem was, and they, quite frankly, were on board with changing it. If they had said, you know what, we really love things as they are, and let's work on, I don't know, more events or something like that, I would have been like, well, it was nice knowing you. See you later. So they were very. I have to give Eduardo and Max and have Paul Palmer in office. All of them. They were very good at. They recognized the way they had done it hadn't worked to the way that it could. And they were very open in terms of giving me that piece of the pie to handle, again, obviously within reason, in order to build the brands. And so that was something we did. Now, it's funny in a way, because I had kind of more of a gradual approach for it initially, just because I didn't want to have the company, they just hired me. I started having them spend a ton of money overnight to rebrand everything. So at first the strategy would just be gradual, but within a few months, Nick Melillo and D'Angelito kind of pushed Max, Nick from Foundation and Dion from Illusion. They pushed Max to Max Fernandez, the owner's son, to do it quicker. And then they were kind of even pushing me to go faster. So in terms of how we did it, that evolved a little bit as time went on. But in terms of knowing that was what needed to be done, that was obvious from the get-go.
Now, how much time during this rebranding have you spent time filling in questions? And you and I touched about this a little bit at Dojo around, oh my gosh, the blend's different. No, it's not. It's just labeling. Has that been something you've been meddling with?
No, not really. So I would say in the case, if the brands sold well, but they didn't sell as well as we felt they could based on the quality of the blends. Now, like JFR, I've been much more hesitant to touch anything with that because that's been so successful as it is. I would love to cellophane it and change the band, but like, I don't want to mess with that really because of the amount of volume that we sell for it. It's a little dangerous to do that. For the stuff that we've been rebranding, the sales were certainly good, but they were not going to reach the levels that we expect them to without making these changes. And again, what you have to get the hardcore, like the hardcore consumer is not the guy you need in terms of, growing it after a certain point. You need people that, and I love the fact that we've created, our acolytes group and so many people that are, go around, preach the gospel of Aganorsa. But there's only so many people that have so much time in their day to be that into cigars where they know Casa Fernandez is Aganorsa and this band is this and that band is that and all this kind of stuff. The average guy walks into the humidor, he kind of looks around. If nobody influences him, if a retailer doesn't talk to him or staff talk to him, or if he hasn't been told by somebody to get a particular brand, he kind of walks around, looks at stuff and something makes sense and he grabs it. And it's nearly impossible to get that guy if we had not improved the branding. It was just not going to happen. That it was going to be a hand sell forever. And again, if you talk to retailers, we did a retailer survey where over 200 answered, and that was the common theme. It was like, we love your cigars. You guys have done such a great job of building enthusiasm for it over the past couple of years, but we have to hand sell it because if the guy doesn't know what it is, even if he's heard of Aganorsa, he doesn't know what it is because it's all so different. And so, if you could make it more coherent, that would make it easier. And so for every guy that says, it was, and part of that is fun, quite frankly. I mean, the guy says, I like the old band better. I like the new band better. They go, they start trying to track down old bands or whatever it is. Or they I love the new band. To be honest with you, to the degree that they like the band, they tend to like the cigar more. I mean, that's another thing you hear a lot. So you can't be worried about too much about that because there's always somebody that's not going to like what you're doing. I mean, we used to have a Churchill size in the Connecticut you're smoking. It didn't, it was the Robusto and Toros were the best selling of all the four wrappers. The Churchill just didn't sell. And so we got rid of that size and replaced it with a different size. And now a couple guys I have, I love the Churchill. What happened to the Churchill? So it's, you can't make everybody happy. You have to kind of look and say, like, how am I going to get brand aware? I mean, that's the biggest thing. How am I going to continually increase brand awareness? And the new packaging already within a short period of time is proving that was the right move.
And it's a tough thing to cut out a line, right? Or not a line, but to cut out a size, because you do get the people that are like, oh my gosh, that was my go-to. It would last me hours. I would light it, let it go out, light it, let it, So what do you tell people that come up to you and go, I hate it. You got rid of my favorite size.
Sorry, brother. It's one of these things. It's just you can't, if you try to operate that way. And to be honest with you, I'm a person that I have to be very conscious because I will try. That crushes me. I mean, to be honest with you, like that was a conversation we were even having when we first started talking about the rebrand. It was like, yeah, but what if that guy likes that size? And one of our reps, this gentleman Ryan Poehler in Texas, was like, it's like, Terrence, you can't make these decisions based on a few people that maybe love that size. You have to make decisions based on what's best for the brand overall. And I think that's true. And so I hate the fact that he's not going to have that size. I mean, usually what I could say is that, well, there's a few stores that have it on the shelf somewhere. I can point in the stores where it can stock up because, there's not going to be more of it. So in the short term, I can fix it, the problem for him. But in the long term, hopefully he likes one of the other sizes. And this is just the reality. For every one guy you lose because he liked that Churchill so much, you gain 10. You gain 10 because now people are, what's that brand? I've never seen that. Is that new? It's been the humidor over 10 years, but it just looked different. So for every guy that was, really, especially at the level of sales we had. Again, like now, if you take, to use the good people at Ashton again, like if Ashton got rid of or changed the packaging on like the Ashton cabinet Churchill, they'd be out of their minds. I mean, those people smoke that cigar religiously. Like they never change ever. They don't smoke anything else. So you let that pony ride as far as it goes. But if you're not at that kind of level, and you want to reach that level, you have to really look at the packaging and the branding and the presentation and see how that's going to translate to get that kind of casual consumer that is just kind of wandering around the humidor, smokes kind of a few times a year, doesn't watch these types of programs, doesn't read magazines. He's just in there kind of like cigars and was going to pick a few up. That guy is the vast majority of cigar consumers.
Okay, and that makes sense. Kevin actually says here that the new bands are very Instagrammable, and that's
Good.
what matters most. So when you hear comments like that from, and I really hate using this word, influencers in the industry,
you hate using it about Kevin, or you hate using the
no, just the word influencer.
no,
just the word influencer, because I don't influence a damn thing. Kevin definitely influences more than me, but when
that was a joke, Kevin.
When you hear somebody, that's got a big name, big show, come on and say that's a very Instagrammable brand, it's a noticeable brand, does that kind of make it all worthwhile, the trouble of designing and going through? And what's your thoughts when people are saying, I don't like the new brand versus I love it? Like, how do you approach those situations?
Well, generally we like to hear we like it more than they don't like it. I mean, for me, as long as you're being honest, I'm fine with you telling me in a way that's meant to be helpful. Like Terrence, I love the old branding more. You totally screwed this up. I have no problems with anybody saying that, if that's what they really mean. In fact, I want to hear it, because if we didn't make a huge screw up, we want to know. But I don't take any one person's feedback, for the most part, one way or the other. So if I hear continually, this is great, so much better, it's selling better now. You hear those comments kind of over and over again. You made the right decision, and if you hear kind of the opposite, you didn't. And that's kind of how you have to look at it. You can't get caught up in like, this one person said this or this one person said that. Now, again, as to your point, obviously it's more impactful if Kevin or somebody that has an audience is excited about it. That obviously helps. So that's, it's not fair to compare him necessarily to just some average consumer. But at the end of the day, even you're not going to make everybody happy. So what you look at is overall among the consumers, among your retail partners, among influencers, among people that are into cigars, what are they responding to it? Is it positive? Is it doing better? Is it generating more sales? And if it is, you can't get upset about the people that feel the opposite. And then and like I said, it doesn't bother me at all that they feel the opposite. I mean, I'm glad that they would tell me the truth and that they feel something was better another way. I mean, because if that was the case, we might have to really think about it. But most of these decisions, like I said, are not like, I'm not sitting in some like ivory tower saying, it would be a great idea, and I just kind of throw stuff at the wall. Most of these ideas come from our retailer and consumer partners, and we look for commonalities in their responses to what we're doing, and then we make adjustments based on that. So usually by the time we come out with something, I'm fairly positive that it's going to do well, because it was driven by consumer and retailer feedback, and people like Kevin, however you want to call them, influencers or human beings, whatever the proper term is for them.
So let's see. I'm curious, because you said you like people telling you the truth when it comes to your brand, your cigar. What was one of the hardest things, or not necessarily hardest things, but what's one of the craziest things anybody has said to you so far during this rebranding, or just plain out stupid, idiotic thing that you've heard somebody come to you and go, "Hey, Terrence, you're going to want to hear this," and you're like in the back of your head, I don't know. Does that question kind of make sense? I'm just looking for what's the craziest form of feedback that you've gotten?
God, there's been so much. Now, I'd have to think about something that just bat defecation crazy. I can't think off the top of my head of any. Although I can assure you I've received it at some point. But I would say for the most part, even when I feel it's misguided or incorrect, like as long as the person's trying to like be helpful, I appreciate it. I appreciate the feedback and I listen to it. And I try to not really think about it too much. I try to just kind of like note that I heard it. And so if I hear that same feedback again, I could be, I mean, when I joined the company, we make all these 60, 70, 80 ring gauge cigars. I was like, what in God's name do we make this for? And then I looked at the sales and that was the biggest sellers. To this day, they're the biggest sellers. We sell more of that than anything else. And so my job is to kind of just try to determine objective reality to the greatest degree I can and not really try to bring my own ego into it of, that's, that won't work because I think so, or that's crazy because I think it's crazy, or anything else. So that said, there's probably been a few things that have been just wacko, but that's not off the top of my head. I can't think of a good story for you.
Well, moving on out of the product realm, now that we're much more of the way through this whole COVID experience, your crew is getting more back on the road. We were able to actually have a good cigar fest this year with a good turnout. Your teams are going back into the shops more. You're going back into the shops. What has been one of the changes that you made that you have stopped doing that you did during COVID? And what has been one of the changes that you have made during COVID that you actually liked and you decided to keep around?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say we've, I would say it's decreased. I mean, I think for a long time, the chat rooms, I have gotten into chat rooms far less than I did prior, during COVID, I would say. So I wouldn't say 100% we've stopped, but I've done less of that. I've been more on the road. I've been working on other things. And again, there's a lot more to do again, where for a while there wasn't too much else to do. So all day long, you were jumping in various chat rooms, talking to, other people that were home and couldn't do much else either. So that's slowed significantly, if not completely stopped. And then I would say that a lot of the Zoom meetings, we continue to do Zoom meetings with our team. We continue to try to do them at times with retailers and their staff. I'd say retailers have pulled away a lot from the Zoom model. I think that they're back to kind of, hey, you want to do a training, come on in. Some are still open to the Zoom model, but far less than they were during COVID. But we certainly use it for sales meetings and things like that. So I think that was a great tool to utilize.
As far as your team's selling style, has that changed by any means, or is that fully back to normal pre-COVID?
Again, I think it's an amalgamation of some of our guys really got into doing more, whether it's Zoom or email blasts. They got better at doing emails instead of just like kind of like spamming everybody. They created better content emails, and so I think those skills are as useful now as they were during COVID, but you got to be in front of the guy again. So, if you're not in front of and to be honest with you, that was an advantage during COVID. I never really stopped traveling. I mean, I couldn't go, California was kind of off the radar for a while there, in New York and some places, but a lot of states you could still travel to. And I did. And, as long as the retailer was fine with me coming by to see him, which the vast majority were, I'd go visit them. And it certainly paid dividends because, I mean, you were one of the few that were doing it. And so they hadn't seen anybody in a while, and that worked. And now that people are back on the road, I think that becomes, important again, because when nobody's traveling, they'll read the emails. When people can come in and see them again, they tend not to read them as much. And I'm just using emails as an example. And there's a lot of different things that we did that people were more kind of amicable towards. It's not that they've stopped doing it. It's that again, life has changed again, and we try to hit everybody every which way. We try to get them in front of them at their stores. I think that's a great opportunity. There's nothing like that. That's a big part of what the cigar industry is. There's some stores that hardly ever saw anybody and complained all the time. So you could do a Zoom meeting with them because you can't get out there as often as they would like. And they got used to that during COVID. And so they're okay with that, at least as an alternative to only seeing somebody every 6 months. Getting them involved in our groups, Aganorsa Acolytes on Facebook, getting them involved in social media, following us on those things. So we're trying to do all that because it's hard to get somebody's attention. And so if maybe none of those things work on their own, but if the rep comes in and visits them, and then they go on their social media feed and they see some Aganorsa stuff, and then they get an email about the latest product from Aganorsa, and then so on and so forth, altogether something sticks in their head.
And that makes absolutely total sense. You guys are doing a little bit of all the good stuff from that you did during COVID mixed with all the good stuff you did pre-COVID, and having the best amalgamation of kind of both worlds. And I'm sure it's opened you guys up for being more willing to call a shop if a shop's just like, hey, just give us a call, versus, all right, I'll go out there type mentality. Do shops have that mentality after COVID, or are they all begging for you to come out?
No, I think some of them definitely liked. It's like anything else. It's like some of them absolutely hated it and only did those types of Zoom meetings and things because it was a necessity. Otherwise, they would have been like a recluse. And then you had some that were against it but got used to it and now actively partake in it. And then you had some that just either were waiting for this moment to happen or were thrilled that it did, and they prefer that method. You see, consumers are a lot different. I would say it has a more lasting impact on consumers. There's a lot of consumers that got, if not into cigars, certainly developed an interest, a greater interest in them through the COVID period. And so they might not have ever been to a store. So there's still a lot of these consumer-based groups that meet every Friday or twice a week or all the time. The chat room is always open, and there's still a lot of that. And that's why I said we haven't completely stopped doing that, because for a lot of guys, that's the only way you'll ever meet them, is through these things. They don't go to stores and hang out. They're not traveling and going to festivals and things like that. They go on their back porch at night and they jump on that meeting with their friends, and that's your access to them. That I think has definitely had a more lasting impact and needs to be taken into consideration.
Now you're referring more towards like the whereby room stuff, right?
Yeah, like a whereby room, or like a Cigar Dojo has several. Yep. There's the Castle Crew; those guys jump on, and there's a bunch of them that do that. So they still exist, and again, like I said, for a lot of these people, that's their cigar experience. I mean, that's how they got into it. Somebody was like, "Hey, man, you're bored at home, and we smoke cigars on the golf course. Why don't you jump up and join us for a cigar tonight?" And they started doing that, and they've gotten into cigars through that. But that's how you reach them, is through those groups, and so I think that still has to be considered. How a person becomes acquainted with cigars, or how is important to understand. There's a lot of guys that their dad took them golfing and they only smoke on the golf course, or they only smoke at weddings, or they only smoke. And so if the guy was kind of introduced through whereby meetings, he tends to smoke during whereby meetings. And so, it doesn't mean that they don't expand and grow from there, but there's that, that's their base. And so you also, it's a good opportunity to capture them at that time, because there's not a lot of people that are, accessing that. So if you can somehow access those guys through those groups, it's great. Now, during COVID, there was 150 people in some of these things, so it kind of justified getting in them more often. Now it seems to be more casual, and they'll have the group open, and there'll be like 8 or 9 guys at a time. It's hard to operate where you're jumping in all these rooms all the time doing that. But that said, there's still an effort to kind of be influential within those groups, either through the group leaders or whatever, or some of the members. And hopefully they're singing your praises during these meetings.
And in fact, to your point, Bruce just commented, some of my closest cigar friends he's never met in person.
Yeah, I think I would say now, that's a great comment. Like, I would say now that's true for I would say probably half the people out there smoking. They've either never met them in person or maybe or met them after they became somewhat close with them through these communities. I would say that is more common than not now. And that's an important thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, no, it really, really is. And Kevin comments that we need to see more of you on TikTok. So I've got a little suggestion. I think with the whole Aganorsa arm,
yes,
that you guys need to get some crazy ripped power lifter guy to do like the captain, to where you can have everybody picking their leg up to do the whole Captain Morgan thing. That we need to start the fist with the leaves in hand and kind of making that. I think that would be, I think you could do it. The emblem leads to people kind of making that symbol with either rolled up paper or rolled up leaf itself.
I joke that I was the model for the arm. It's kind of scrawny.
Well, I mean, let's go. Let's get like an Arnold Schwarzenegger there to do the bow. I'm sure you got him on your speed dial.
I have a funny Arnold Schwarzenegger story.
Go ahead, share.
He's actually close friends with a guy named Daniel Marshall, who does humidors. Super nice guy. Daniel Marshall, I've known for years. When I worked in my previous my life at Quesada Cigars, working with my uncle, we imported his cigars that were made at Placencia for him into Miami, and we did some storage for him or something. To this day, I have a Daniel Marshall humidor, a great humidors and great guy. And he's friends with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And so he brought Arnold Schwarzenegger to our trade show booth in 2013 or something like that. And Arnold, I don't know, maybe he was tired, maybe it was a long day. He wanted nothing. I mean, there's a great picture of me and him kind of looking each other in the eye and like shaking hands. It looks like we're having this great like philosophical conversation. And literally, the camera person, whoever it was, did amazing. Like, they caught at the right moment. He was literally like, "Hey," and he turned away, and he kind of was like, "I don't like to stand next to people taller than me," or something like that. And he walked off. And so, and then that was like, and so like 6 months later, I was with Daniel Marshall in Miami. And we were having lunch, and Arnold called him, and he goes, "Terrence, give me 1 second. It's Arnold. I got to take this call." And so he's like, "Arnold, hey, I'm just in the middle of lunch. Can I call you back? I'm having lunch with Terrence. You remember Terrence from the PCA or the IPC PR? Yeah, him. Okay, I'll tell you. Yeah, I was like, Daniel, you don't have to pretend that guy remembers who I am. Like, he made it sound like he was having lunch with like Sylvester Stallone or something like that. He goes, "Yeah, I'm having lunch with Sly Stallone right now." It's like, "Oh yeah, tell him I said hi." He said, I don't even think he said my last name. I think he just said my first name. He was like, "I'm having lunch with Terrence." He's like, "Arnold said hi." It's like, Arnold didn't say hi.
Well,
anyway,
I tell you what,
that's my short story.
If that opportunity, I would love to meet Arnold Schwarzenegger. Big 80s cheese-tastic movie lover right here. But if you ever get the opportunity to meet him again, you got to get somebody to do the Predator, where you guys both lock arms from the side.
Yeah,
you flex, he flexes. I think that would be a fun.
I think that would be that would be shamefully embarrassing for me, even at Arnold's age of like 70 or whatever it is now.
72, yeah.
I think it would be a sad day for me.
So. In moving on, I wanted to address something with you. So I had Dave Garofalo on. I'm sure you know exactly.
Yeah,
who
of course.
He is.
Yeah, I'll be at his anniversary party next week.
Oh, fantastic! He made a comment when he was on my show talking specifically to retailers and told them to cancel all their back orders. And he said because sales are dropping inside the cigar world. And some of these shops would just go, "I would like to have, 20 boxes of this," knowing that only 5 or 7 are going to show up. And he says, as sales are dropping, back orders are starting to get filled, and they're flooding shops with more cigars than in reality they usually need. Are you finding that to be a problem where shop owners are over getting and are like, whoa, we're getting too much product in? Because I was always told that that's kind of how it used to be. You'd order 10 of something in hopes to get 5.
Yeah, I mean, the boom, that was obviously a thing. And I think during COVID, during the height of it, certainly the guy he'd ordered 2, he wasn't getting 2. So he'd order 4, he'd get 1. So he'd order 10, hoping to get 3 or something like that. And so that's true. That happens. We haven't seen any of that for 2 reasons. One, we continue to grow. And 2, one thing that I have been very adamant about since joining the company is organic sales. So we really don't load people up. I talk with our reps about that. Now, again, we want to sell as much as we can, obviously, but there's no point in selling somebody something more than that they can handle at that time. You want organic growth, and so one, we haven't overloaded anybody or pressured anybody to buy more than they feel comfortable with. We have our Aganorsa Select program, which we gain people every year with. We never pressure, we're never like, you have to be a part of this, or if you don't do this, we hate you or anything. It says, hey, if this program works for you, it's a great opportunity. If not, then don't worry. Let's work, educating your staff and your consumer base so that next year it makes sense for you to partake in this. So that's one. And 2, ultimately, we're still, I guguess you could call us a mid-sized company, but there's so much growth potential for us that the market could shrink 20% and there'd still be, probably 60, 70% of that would never have even heard of Aganorsa. So we have a long way to go in developing brand awareness. I'm not worried about the people, that are buying less cigars. I'm worried about the people that have never heard of us and don't know who we are and don't know anything about us. That's who I'm worried about. So those are 2 different problems. That doesn't mean that it's not going to get harder to sell or more difficult. I mean, or more, I shouldn't say harder, but you're going to have to provide more reason. I think there was a little bit of a time there, like last year's trade show. This year's trade show is better than last year's, but last year's trade show, literally nobody even asked what the deal was. They just said, "Ooh, that's good stuff."
Oh yeah, this is the barrel-aged gin from Axe and Oak.
Yeah, Axe and Oak. Those guys are great at the Rocky Mountain. I always they're nice enough to let me partake in a few of their fine concoctions, and so I head over there.
You've got to get their barrel-aged gin. I absolutely hate gin. This is whiskey gin. I mean, it's that good.
Wow, I have to. I didn't try the gin. I tried the others, but I actually like gin. I mean, and I know they have that kind of unfiltered gin now. Not them specifically, but like I've seen gins that are now darker in color. They're not that clear.
Yeah, this is a 2.5-year barrel aged, and it takes all the juniper out.
Yeah. What a total digression, huh? I was in the middle of talking about and now we're talking about gin.
Sorry. No, please continue.
No, it was me. I'm the one that digressed. But so those 2 things. One is that there's still a lot of people that haven't heard of us, and there's also it's been a push for organic growth, not overnight growth, and just never, we never. Yeah, last year at the trade show, it was great. Nobody asked what the deal was. They just wanted cigars. This year, the trade show is better, but people did ask, do you have any specials? What's the benefit of this? Why should I carry this product? You're starting to hear those types of questions again. Fortunately, we believe we have answers to all those types of things. And we're still growing. So what's holding us up more than anything is, getting people, getting rollers. We could probably use another person packing in the warehouse in Miami. I mean, we've been slowed down by those factors more than anything else.
And that makes total sense. You'd be slowed down because you can't get the people at the manufacturer to do the rolling more so than. So the problem is not that you don't have the cigars. The problem is getting the people to roll the cigars now at this point.
Well, getting everything. I mean, you got to get them. You need more rollers. You need more people packing. You need more people shipping. You need more people in our warehouse receiving. A 40-foot container. I don't know if you ever unloaded one of those things, but 40 feet of cigar master cases. I mean, those boxes are about 50 pounds a piece. there's literally hundreds of them in the container. And then it's, Miami is not exactly, temperate San Diego. I mean, it's hot, 95 degrees. It takes time to unload all this stuff, and then you got to put it away and inventory it. So these are, I mean, at every stage we could really use more people. It's hard, because there's the big demand in the market for the people that have these skill sets in Nicaragua that we need, and in the U.S. it's hard to get people to work. It's at least in certain jobs, and it'd be hard. I mean, it's just a different mentality, with the younger crowd. I mean, and again, that's not a criticism. That's just the reality. I mean, the people that are in our warehouse are mostly in the 50s and 60s. I mean, they're unloading containers but that they're kind of like, a hard day's work, and you go out there and I think a younger generation wants to get rich on YouTube videos, which many people have. So it's not a bad strategy necessarily. It makes it harder when you're looking for somebody to unload 50-pound master cases at 90 degrees to get that type of worker.
And that makes, again, total sense. I know I work with businesses every single day, all day long, and the number one thing that they tell me is, I'd love to grow, but I don't have anybody to grow with me. I don't have the staff to grow with me. I'm limited because of X staff doesn't exist. And especially now with COVID, there's a lot of people, like you had said, that just want to stay home and work. So, they don't want to do the over the road stuff anymore for whatever reason. Maybe because, and I've had it the other way too, where I've had buddies that are like, I'm getting a divorce because of COVID, because I was out 6, 7, 8 months of the year. My wife and I were getting along so good. And now that I'm at home, I'm doing nothing but driving her up a wall.
Yeah.
So the opposite's definitely good, bad, or indifferent. COVID happened, and we're all still trying to kind of get through it. Kevin proposes a question here about the arm again. Knowing that you have a Greek background in ancient studies background, Greek mythology, right? Background.
More Roman history, but Roman Greek history, Roman classical history.
So he asks, the arm with the leaf is very Greek looking. Did your background in ancient studies play into what the logo was being designed?
So that design actually pre-exists my time with the company. Surprisingly, I did not have anything to do with the design. Not to mention, I'm not really a designer. It's not my thing. I can kind of look at something as a finished product and say, okay, this will work or this won't work. But in terms of creating that is not my strong suit. So that we work with the guy that did the recent rebrand. He also created the arm image originally a few years ago, and he's a designer out of Madagascar of all places, and he does a great job for us. But he's he's a professional guy. He's not a guy that we paid some chocolate bunny heads to say, hey, your brother's aunt's sister-in-law is a designer, on the side, here, can she design us a band? This is a guy that designs labels for a living. And like I said, I'm not that good at things, to be honest with you. I try to find people who are, and I try to find people who are good at them and let them do it. And I think that's a much better strategy for the most part. Is that I could have never come up with a design like that, and it shows.
Well, we have Hallbrook said that you should grab Hulk Hogan to do the arm. Seriously, man, yeah. You should come up with a TikTok. I think you can do the whole Aganorsa Leaf thing with the crumpled leaves, because again, it leads to it with the whole Captain Morgan picking a knee up. I think you might have some TikToks there.
Yeah, I got to figure out TikTok a little bit better. It's funny, when TikTok, I kind of got on TikTok early before a lot of other people did. Yeah, and so I have some early views with 34 million views or things like that, and then they started getting their things together, and their what's it called, analytics, and so now it's a lot harder. And I don't I should really sit with somebody and learn a little bit more in terms of the type of video that will be successful on there and things like that. So I should probably, but maybe that would be the thing, the show us your validation arm. I don't know.
I think that would be, I personally, the best validation arm pick gets a special patch since you do a validation patch. I think that would be a fun little branding campaign for you. And I have Kevin texting me right now telling me to tell you to call him after the show and he'll walk you through TikTok. Because Kevin's very good on TikTok.
I know, absolutely. He's good on all the platforms. I see him on everything. I see him on, which is good. I mean, I'm trying to do that as well. I mean, he does it even better than me. He's on stuff that I think he's on, like MeWe and 100 other things.
You name it, he's there.
Yeah, so he's doing. Trust me, he's doing a better job of it than I am. I'll give him a call tomorrow after the show. My brain is shot. So Kevin, I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Now, you did have your hand though in using your background of Roman Greek studies for the Cerberus name, right?
Well, again, kind of. I mean, like we actually, ironically, had the trademark. So I said, that would be a good name, because it uses the Corojo 99, the Criollo 98, and the Corojo 2012. As a wrapper, there's the 2012, which is a new varietal for us that nobody's growing right now. So each dog kind of represented one of those seed varietals. But we just happened to have the trademark. I mean, so the trademark was pre-existent to my time, and we hadn't been using it. So we grabbed it and got it into activity.
So and get into a little bit more of what my running theme for the year has been, which is really digging down into mentors and mentees. You're a young guy in this industry. You've had family in the cigar tobacco world your entire life. What is your thoughts on either having mentors or being a mentor to somebody? And part two to that question is, what is your approach when looking for a mentor for your own life?
Well, part one, yeah. I mean, I think that's definitely, certainly in life in general, and maybe even more so in this industry, it's hard to learn a lot of the things that you need to know in the cigar business, or especially in terms of the factory side and the field side. But just overall, without having somebody kind of mentoring that process, it's kind of a sui generis industry, and it doesn't make sense in a lot of ways. And there's a lot of people that have come into this industry from other backgrounds and been like, I was really good at this, or I was really good at setting up grocery store chains or whatever it is, and they just totally fail in this business because it's not really, it doesn't operate for better or worse like a traditional business in a lot of ways. In some ways that's for the worst, in other ways that's kind of some of the endearing qualities about it. But you have to understand how that works. And so, when you have guys that have been doing this a long time, whether that's in the farms, in the factory, in terms of working with retailers, all those things, I would have. I mean, I've been doing this almost 15 years now. I think about 15 years, and I would be 10 years behind where I am had I not had some of the people that helped me through this, help get me to where I am now. So I think that's, and again, in terms of mentoring others, I don't know if it's a good idea to be like, hey, I'm here to mentor people. I think that's,
for sure,
a little bit, hubristic, but I do think you should help people if they're if they're willing to learn and you have something that you feel you can share with them that will help them. I think that you should definitely do that. And I think that builds value for you too. I mean, when you can give to somebody and give them, whether that's advice or whatever it is, without expectation of getting something out of them, usually, and that's hard because sometimes people will take advantage of that. But that's, if you do it without expectation, the reward is generally bigger because the person doesn't, as soon as you start being, okay, well, I did this for you, well, you need to do that for me. Now it's a transaction, and now you're putting kind of a price on what you're doing.
Correct.
Whereas if you just say, here, here's some advice, take it for what it's worth. It helped me. People appreciate that far more, and usually pay you back far more, because of it. So that's part one.
And I agree. I think once somebody that's helping you looks for something back out of it from you, it kind of diminishes that intention moving forward, because you always are feeling like, if I ask this person for something, they might ask me for X in return.
Sure.
And maybe that relationship doesn't get built. I know in my life, I have about 10 or 12 mentors spread across both business mentors and personal life mentors. So obviously you've had business mentors, but is there, and you don't have to name names, is there anybody that you have in your life that you would fall back on as a personal life mentor, or somebody where, let me put it this way, they tell you the stuff you don't want to hear at the times that you don't want to hear it, knowing that you need to hear it?
I have less of those, but I have a couple, thank God. But I have less of those. But definitely a few, and they certainly are highly valued.
Now, when you're asking, or when you're, because obviously, like you said, you don't walk up to somebody and go, "Hey, Ryan over here, I'll be a mentor. Who's looking? Who's looking? Anybody in the crowd?" You know. So yeah, right. So when you're kind of going through, and these mentors happen in a very natural feeling, to the point where a couple of years might go by and you might never think of that person as a mentor, just somebody that you ask advice from. Does that, what is the value in that, in your business, to know that there are people that you can? And the reason why I'm asking these questions is because I, I've been in sales 20 years. I wouldn't
Sure.
be anywhere where I am right now without better people coming in front of me, making the mistakes for me. And then now it doesn't mean I didn't make the same mistakes they did, because I always had to learn the hard way. But they were there to help, to coach, to stop or prevent some of the downfall of a mistake that you might make. What kind of value is that for somebody that's been in sales like you, to be able to pull from?
I'd say it's crucial. I mean, you need to have people. You don't want to be the smartest guy in the room. That's usually a bad sign. When you're the smartest guy in the room, there's nowhere to go. So you want to be around people that have more answers than you, and have done more than you, and have been more successful. And again, it's a two-way street. You have to have people that, some people don't want to share that. They want to kind of keep the secrets to themselves, or whatever it is, and they view you as, or not you, but other people as a competition, or as somebody that's a threat. And then there's people that feel that they, that know how to do everything, and they don't need advice. And so you need to have both those factors. You have somebody that has the humility to say, well, there's a lot I can learn. And you have to have somebody that has the good intentions and the generosity to say, well, with at the same time, a sense of humility. It's like, I've made a lot of mistakes, and I've done some things right. And, maybe you can, get to point B quicker if you do this, and watch out for this if you want to avoid ending up, two steps behind, or whatever it is. And so I think it's just a matter of making sure you have people that are amicable to both those aspects of that relationship.
And you've been in the professional world now for quite some time, like I have, in like an actual professional style selling job. I'm not talking like you run a company at this point as far as the sales are concerned. So if somebody were to come up to you and say, "Hey, Terrence, I've got a lot of people giving me advice. I don't know how or who to file through and listen to. I know I need to cut a few people out that are giving me advice because I don't feel it's good advice. How do you tell somebody or help somebody go through weeding out the people in their professional world that, let me back up. How do you help somebody get to the point where they can understand that maybe that relationship isn't all it's made up to be?
Well, again, I think you have to narrow it down a little bit to a few things. One is that, like, I mean, it depends on, let's just say the person is coming for advice on a particular type of job. Like, so first of all, you want somebody that knows about that type of job. They might know about other things, but not have any real knowledge on that. You have to be careful who you ask advice from, to be honest. That's another problem. I mean, anyone will give you an answer. I mean, think everything you've asked me tonight, I give you an answer on. I mean, I could, I could have no idea what I'm talking about, but nobody wants to sound like they don't know. So they'll say something. So one is you have to be careful who you talk to. So you want somebody that is knowledgeable in that particular area, first and foremost. And by knowledgeable, I mean that has success in it over a sustained period of time. So this guy, you want to get rich, and one guy won the lottery, and the other guy, took 6 different companies public. The guy that won the lottery is probably not the one you want to listen to. Yeah, you could say he's had success, but I don't know if that success is, is that luck, or is that, so you want to have somebody that's really is a believable person. They have the expertise, and they have the experience and the success to show you that they know what they're talking about. And then 2, somebody that knows you, and that's important too, because that guy that has that success, he may give you advice in a way that would work for somebody like him, but it might not work for somebody like you, depending on your personality, depending on your skill sets, depending on all these different factors. And so the idea is to try to find somebody that gets both those aspects. They know who you are, and they know about the particular thing you're asking them about. And so that's how you really want to weed it down. And some of those people would be good in some situations and less valuable in others. So it's not about like kicking everybody out. It's more about, okay, who are you asking advice on this question? And then do they know what they're talking about? And do they know, your personality and who you are?
So what you're saying is Mark Cuban would be a better mentor than somebody that won the lottery.
Yes, I would.
If you're trying to build a business versus win the lottery.
Yes, I would say that's probably. Or again, if you're for financial advice, who do you want financial advice from? I mean, you have 3 guys. You have one guy that's in bankruptcy. You have one guy that won the lottery, and you have one guy that's built Fortune 500 business. They all have advice. I mean, who do you want to listen to? I mean, you probably want to listen to the guy that has didn't win a lucky contest, or is broke. You want to listen to the guy that's through over a period of time has a long string of successful ventures. I mean,
no, one of my close mentors in the business world always told me he's never worked for a poor person. And that's a very, like, even though you won the lottery, that person's poor in advice because they can only really give you advice on the lottery. But it's better to go to somebody who you can envision where you want to end up. It's the old adage, show me 5 friends and I'll show you where you're going to be. Yeah.
And again, that doesn't, the lottery guy may have, done things well enough where he's doing okay. But I mean, is that like is he where he is because of good decisions? And again, I guess, is playing the lottery a good decision? Well, I guess it is for the person who wins. The other million people, not so much. And so that's kind of, I think, like, just to use up. I mean, it could be marriage advice. It could be like, do you want to listen to some guy that's been thrice divorced and or a guy that is totally has a horrible marriage, or do you want to listen to a guy that has a successful, happy marriage that's thrived over 30 years? I mean, the other 2 might be valuable as in terms of what not to do. I mean, if you want to learn what not to do, maybe talk to those guys, but in terms of what to do, you want to talk to somebody that is successful in it.
Now, do you take the belief that in order to be a good mentor to somebody, you have to be willing to say no? You have to be willing to give them advice they don't necessarily. So, and I asked the question based on this preference. It wasn't until my mid-20s where I realized all the times that I got my that I deserved, that I got my ass whooped by my dad because I did something stupid. It took me a decade or more to really kind of analyze that within myself, to where there's about, early 20s, mid 20s, where I remember looking at my dad going, I understand where you were coming from all those years. And it took me a decade to kind of figure that out for myself. So being somebody that does have a son, that is raising a son, is it beneficial for you to have, or even somebody that you're mentoring, understand the value of, this is a bad thing for you to do? You're not going to understand it now, but you will.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's different relationships. I mean, you also have to figure, the ultimate goal, I think, is you want the person to make a good decision. That's ultimately what the goal is. Now, when you're dealing with the child doesn't have the capacity yet to do that on their own. So, you try to have them understand why you're doing it, but like at the end of the day, it doesn't make any difference if they understand or not. This isn't a democracy. Like, do what I say, and then when you're older, you can determine whether it was, you're happy about I did it or not. So that's a little bit different of a dynamic. I would say when you're mentoring, again, like another person that's a fairly grown up person. What I always say when somebody asks me advice, I want to give them advice in the way that they will receive it and utilize it. And there's some people that you can be like, listen, man, what you're doing is stupid. You would be a moron to do that. And they will respect you saying that to them, and they'll listen to it, and they'll say, well, you know what, I appreciate you being honest with me and everything else. And there's other people that will immediately shut down from that, and they'll do that thing purely out of spite because you've embarrassed them, or you've made them feel bad, or you made them feel stupid. So you kind of have to know your audience. And so I think for some people, I mean, you have to, sometimes it's just saying, no, that's a bad idea. Sometimes it's asking questions. It's like, it's like, oh, that sounds really interesting. How are you going to, account for this aspect? And just ask questions and let them come to conclusions. So I think if your goal is really for them to do what you truly believe is the best thing for them, you have to be cognizant of how you present that, because you can kind of go away feeling morally superior, be like, I told him that was a stupid idea, and then he went out there and he blew it, and he didn't listen to me, and he failed. And it's like, well, you kind of, I mean, is your goal to feel better than him because he didn't listen to you, or is your goal to get him to listen to you? So I think you have to kind of play into that when you're talking to somebody.
And that actually brings me to my next question. Is the value of a mentor shown when you don't take the advice as given, but you still go down the hard road? See, like me, 99.99% of the time that I got in trouble with my dad, it was 100% my fault. I deserved every bit of it. And again, it took me a long time to get there, to that understanding, but I eventually came to that understanding. Is it valuable not valuable, but is what you want to see in a mentor to be able to show empathy when you didn't take that advice and you went your own way, for them to be like, I'm hurting with you, I understand now that that role kind of changes a little bit. You didn't take my advice, but I'm still going to be here to build you up, versus somebody that just sits there and goes, well, you should have taken my advice, dummy. I don't know why you did this. It makes absolutely no sense. What is a better version of somebody to idolize in that world?
I think the best thing is you just start moving forward. I mean, it's pretty clear if somebody comes back to you for advice that you didn't listen to the first time, they're either aware that they made a mistake and that's why they're back, or there's something they don't want to listen to you necessarily. They just want like kind of empathy porn or something like that. I don't know, but like, I think you just move forward and you don't dwell too much. You just learn from it. You go, okay, well, I mean, usually it's kind of clear to everybody what went wrong, in those situations. So there's not really a lot of reasons to talk about it. You just want to move forward and show, okay, well, maybe next time I'll listen to you, and that's really That's really it. I wouldn't spend too much time dwelling on it one way or the other. Either to say haha, or to be like, well, let's go through why this happened and what what you did and everything else. I mean, even if that's with a good intention, I don't know if that usually that person knows what he did, and either is cognizant of that and is willing to kind of adjust, or he's not, and going over it won't change anything.
And I totally agree with you. Every one of the good people that I look up to in my life has always been there to catch when I have fallen. And then they'll look at me and go, we're going to spend 5 minutes on this, and then we're going to get over it, and we're going to talk about how to move forward. So it's never been rubbing your nose in it, because nobody likes to have their nose rubbed in anything. But I do feel that showing the empathy and then being like, okay, cool, how do we move forward? It is a good, and I appreciate you going down this rabbit trail, because I try to offer something a little bit different on the show versus just talking about product, because you do have a lot of advice. You do have a lot of knowledge yourself and wisdom to share with people. And I feel like a lot of it is somewhat lost in, I'm Terrence Reilly from Aganorsa versus I'm Terrence Reilly, and I actually, I'm essentially trying to show to put you in a light that allows people to realize that you yourself also rely on other people, that you do go to other people for advice, that you do go to other people for ideas and understanding, and that's totally 100% okay. And in fact, shows your character as better than a know-it-all, or better than somebody unwilling to learn, especially from their own mistakes.
Yeah, I think this has been an enjoyable conversation.
Like I said, I always try to, because again, me being in sales for so long, it's always very interesting to me to kind of gauge and get an understanding into people's thought process around how they deal with certain situations. Now, I do want to ask, as a father of a slightly over 14-month-old, what would be now it's a 14-month-old daughter. However, it's my daughter. So I throw her up and everything, and she's a daredevil at this point. She's like a little boy in the sense of she's super destructive. She throws everything off of tables, but for fun, right? In a fun, playful, not in like I'm throwing a temper tantrum way. So what is some advice that you would share with me as having a son that's almost teenage?
He's 10.
10.
He'll be 11. He'll be 11 in March.
So close, within a couple of years of being a teenager. What's some advice that you would give somebody to me to that first 10 years of life of having a child?
I would say try to be present in the time that you're there. I mean, you got to work. You're gone. We're doing the show right now. Is so that when you have the time to be together and do something, to really enjoy it and enjoy each stage for what it is. Like for me, as time went on, it was like, it used to be like this, and then it was the next stage, and then it was like, it used to be like this, and then it was the next stage, and you kind of find yourself like saying, well, where did the time go, and everything like that. And I think it's important just to enjoy each stage, as it comes, and it goes fast. So. I mean, again, he's only 10, but still 10 years, a decade's gone by. Like, I can't even explain it. It's amazing.
I also have no memory.
Is she sleeping through the night?
Oh my! She is just like me. She is a bear when she sleeps.
Oh, thank God.
She's down. Okay, she's down at 6:30 and gets up at 7 a.m.
Oh, what a wonderful child! That's. I was gonna say, like, they're like, you have to get them on a sleep schedule. That was the other, because we went 9 months before, like, we kind of insisted that, like, I was driving on the highway and like my eyes would go black and they were open because I was so tired. It was like my brain was like, I'm out of here, So We did that, and once we implemented it, within like 2 days, he was sleeping through the night, and I was like, "Why did we not do this like 6 months ago?" But so that's why I asked. Is that you end up going nuts if you don't sleep. So at 14 months, I've heard people be like, "Yeah, it was like the first 2 years." I was like 2-3 years. I would have gone nuts. There's no way I could have done that. So I try to tell people to get them on a sleep schedule, even though there's like 2 days where it's depressing because they cry.
My wife is a stay-at-home mom, and she is perfectly in tune to my daughter in every way. So I'm very grateful for that. But in the 10 years that you've been a parent, what was one of the hardest experiences that you've gone through as a parent? Either letting your kid fall and scrape their knee and having to teach them that it's okay to get back up, get back on the bike, and get going. What was one of the hardest things where you had to kind of watch them do their own thing, knowing that they had to go through that to learn? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's, I don't know if I can say a specific example, but I can say that there's this very difficult thing of trying to balance. Again, I think I would be a little different with a girl, to be honest with you. But with a son, it's like they have this kind of untamed spirit, and you don't want to crush it, but you don't want it to remain untamed because they'll end up jumping off a bridge, because they're wild. So it's trying to find that balance of like having them develop and have the experiences where they have the discipline to hold gratification for for the greater good and make the good long-term decision and have those types of skills. It's tricky because you go too hard and you break their spirit, and you don't go hard enough, and they end up screaming, the kid that's in the supermarket, shut up, mom, and screaming at the mom and everything like that. It's God, it's like every time I hear something like that, it like depresses me. It's like that kid has got no chance in life. It's like he's just gonna, So I'd say that's real. I guess that's kind of not really an answer to your question, but it's kind of a constant. It's like with everything. It's like the homework. You want him to do the homework on his own. You don't want to do it for him, but you want to help him so that he learns how to do it. When they were walking, you want them to walk, on their own, but you don't want them to fall and smash their face open on the pavement. So it's just trying to create environments where the consequences aren't too dire, I guess. And so when they fail, it's like, okay, that's not the end of the world. And it's literally not the end of the world because, you weren't teaching them to walk over, around the edge of the pool or something like that, And so that's kind of the balance I go for.
So this will be the last question on this topic, but how has it been to walk the line between father and friend?
I'm not his friend. I'm not his friend. I'm
okay. So I
I'm
respect
his father.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, again, that doesn't mean I don't enjoy doing things with him.
Oh,
I do.
no, totally.
I love it. It's great. I mean, I love it.
Absolutely.
But I'm not his friend. I'm his father.
And you know what? I growing up, I look back at the parents that were quote unquote best friends with their kids from the standpoint of a friend, not a father-friend relationship.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that, and oftentimes their relationships become really rocky over the years, because then once the dad steps in and starts to lay the law down, it's like, well, I thought you were my friend.
Yeah. We're not friends. We're and that I don't say that in a way that sounds like
no,
like
I
him or
totally
something.
get it. Get it.
There's nothing. He's the most important thing in my life. I spend as much time with him as I can. I love spending time with him. I love going to the park and doing stuff at the park. I mean, I love all that stuff. But we're not. This is not a democracy. I mean, someday it might be the reverse. I might be half out of my, with my last wit or whatever, and I'm going to have to listen to him, and he'll be the one. But the dynamic of the relationship is that, he's not at the stage. We're not equals. He's, and I hope to God, someday he's he looks behind and I look like, the dust that the space from the space shuttle, but until that time, we're not going to get there. It's like, oh, we're buddies and all that stuff. We're not buddies. He's my son.
And I think that's been hard for me, telling my daughter no.
Yeah. And to be fair, man, I think I would be a much bigger sucker if I had a daughter. I don't think I could do that. I don't think I could do that role very well. I mean, I would be weak. I'd be honest. So I'm not judging you. I would be very weak in that way. I think it's, again, I guess I'm old fashioned this way. Somebody out there is probably upset that I'm enforcing gender roles or something. But for me, I mean, men have the highest rate of suicide. They do worse in school. They're more likely to be unemployed. They're more likely to commit homeless, or be the victim of violent crime. Homeless. I mean, jail. It's across the board. And so, again, I'm not saying this is fair or not fair, but like, there's an expectation of it, whether it's now or when they're 40. Again, maybe it was back in the day. It was like the kid was like 8 and he didn't have 4 jobs and then he was like lazy or something. I mean, maybe that was the other extreme. But like like the expectation is there where you will not, you do not get the kind of comfort zone as a man that you have as a woman. You will, if you don't perform at a certain level and in certain capacities in life and things like that, you're going to have a really hard time. I think for women, there's equally difficult challenges out there, but I think they're different challenges, and so I think the dynamic for me would be different if I had a daughter. In good way. In some ways, I would probably be more of a sucker in some ways, and then other ways I would maybe be a little bit more protective. And so it's not that it would be.
It's the double standard of I'll let my son go out till midnight, but my daughter comes home at 10.
Yeah, no, I think that. But I mean, again, I think the consequences are more dire for the daughter. I mean, that's just the reality. I mean, that's true. I mean, it is. But also, I mean, I think that there's responsibility that comes with that. Okay, you're out till midnight. Well, go get a job. Maybe I'll give my daughter, $10 to go with her friends to the movie or something like that. My son, hey, go get a job. Again, I'm just making things up.
No,
but I'm saying is that there's different challenges for people, and
for sure.
And you want to make sure that it's just the reality of life, and you want to make sure your child, when they face that, and you're not there, which at some point you won't be, can handle whatever those realities are. And those realities are, I think, a little bit different depending on whether you're a boy or girl.
No, totally. And my daughter has me wrapped around her finger. She knows it already, much more than my wife. I see the lip come out and I'm like, what do you want? What do you want? How can I make you happy? I actually find myself bribing my daughter for smiles, like making a fool out of myself just to get a giggle out of it. So I on that note, I do want to ask if you're willing to share because my wife and I talk about this all the time. There's going to be a point in time where our daughter says something, because I cuss like a sailor.
Yeah.
My daughter says something where my wife and I are like, we're going to have to send her to her room just so we can laugh for like 5 minutes and then go back and be like, you can't do that anymore. So what was one of your memories that you have where your son said something or did something where you were like, I think that's absolutely fucking hilarious, but I can't laugh and let him know that because he can't do that.
He's at a few. One thing that we would say is that we, like, when he was younger, I would swear in Spanish his mom, and because we didn't want him to say the words, but then he started saying them in Spanish. so I guess in a way it didn't really work. Like, we're in Miami. I mean, more people know Spanish than English. So so that's definitely one that we had to be like, oh, you can't say that.
And we'll go ahead and do a topic change. Thank you so much for following me down that rabbit hole. I think that just gives people a little bit more insight to how you tick, gives you a little bit more people a little bit more insight to you personally. So I always appreciate you willing to go down that rabbit hole with me.
Sure.
Kevin asks here, let me go ahead and remove this and then bring up this comment. We all know you love Clutch Berger. Is there ever going to be a Terrence Reilly Berger for all the promotions and Facebook shout outs you give them?
There's wings. There's Big T's wings. You got that.
That's you.
Yeah.
You're Big T.
Yes. I didn't come up with a name. I'm
so
tall.
Did they like come up to
I'm
you
a big,
and say,
yeah.
Did they come up to you and say, I want to do a food item after you, or they just do it?
They had a secret food menu, which they don't do as much anymore. But they, for a while they had it, and one of the things was the wings, and so I would order the wings, and then they entered them into a wing competition in Miami, and they won. And so after that, they put them on the menu, and they started calling them Big T's wings.
So do you get free wings when you go in there now?
No, I still pay for it. I'm not. I don't do that stuff for free stuff. I like the owner's a good friend of mine, and I like to support him as much as I can. And it was nice that he named something after me.
Now, what do you do when you're not Terrence Reilly Aganorsa, when you're turned off on the weekends? What do you find enjoyment outside of work doing? Outside of spending time with your son, of course, because the only photos you smile in on Facebook are either when you're working or with your son.
There's no other. There's nothing really else. I try to read a little bit, and then I do enjoy my Boston sports teams, and I like the like UFC fighting and things like that. But I mean, again, that's like very little time do I have for any of that anymore. I read in the morning for about a half hour every morning before anyone gets up, and then again on weekends, the beauty of like sports is that people do that, so you can kind of get together and see a game or whatever and watch that. But that's, I mean, if you take away the time I spend with my son and the time I'm working, there's very little time left.
Now, what do you like to read? Are you fiction, nonfiction? Do you read sales comprehension books? What do you read?
So I like everything. I mean, I like literature. I would say my favorite is literature, but I read as time goes on. I read more. I recently read Principles, or not Principles. I read that as well, but the Changing World Order by Ray Dalio, for instance. It's about economic shifts and things like that. There's sales books. Never Split the Difference is a great one I read not too long ago. But I still prefer, I would say, history and literature. I'd say for that stuff, the problem is I tend to go more short stories now, generally speaking. That said, I've been reading Ulysses for the past like 7 months, but I read it all. I enjoy reading fundamentally, but if I had a little bit more time, I would focus more on the classics and things like that.
Now,
Fiction.
do you take notes inside your books? Highlight?
No, no, I don't do that. I'm not a big fan. I will occasionally mark something if it's really impactful. I don't do that for literature. I'll do that for like a sales book or some sort of study book. There's a book. What the hell is it called? The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life by this guy Goffman. It's a book from the 70s. And so I marked that one up a little bit. There were certain lines in there that like I thought were, but I view that almost more as like I'm studying, like really reading for me is literature. That's reading. I'm enjoying that. That other stuff is more, unless it's my field, if it's, Roman or Greek literature, history or something like that, that's something I enjoy as well. But if it's like a sales book or some sort of psychiatry or things like that, like I'm doing that more to learn. It's not that I don't enjoy it, but that it's not something that I'm doing is like for fun.
Now, you are well read, obviously, to have your degree in ancient studies. You're clearly very well read in general. Are you an audiobook fan? Bruce says here, audiobooks are great for when he's walking or driving. So do you like audiobooks? And then when you're out with your salespeople, do you suggest books for them to read?
Audiobooks, I think, are okay for like, yeah, like, you're driving and that book like Never Split the Difference, or certain yes, the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, those types of things. I'm not against audiobooks. I don't use audiobooks. I hate audiobooks. I like reading. That's not reading. That's listening to the radio. That said, I think it's effective in certain areas. And like you said, like when you're driving for 4 hours, you could put in something that, you don't have time to read, but you've got 4 hours ahead of you and you don't want to listen to some mindless,
Drivel.
whatever. Yeah. Whatever it is. And so, yeah, I think it has a value. And I think, there's nothing wrong with that. If I listen to something on the radio, it tends to be more like of a debate. Like, I would listen to like
a lecture.
Yeah. Well, not. It could be a lecture, but more like the Foucault Chomsky debate, or some sort of back and forth, or like that's why I like a podcast, is that there's kind of like this back and forth between the two. When it's just one person talking for long periods of time. Kind of where they're basically reading something. Like even a lecture, the guy kind of digresses and it kind of keeps you alive and when you're listening to it. Whereas when they're just reading, I don't know. It's easy to get lost and to be, hey, what happened there? And then you're just driving and looking at the road. I don't like that.
No, and you know what? This comment from Kevin does not shock me. Kevin says he can't do audiobooks because he likes to make up my own voices in my head. So my guess is he likes to make up the own sounds from a certain character.
Yeah, it's funny. When I was younger, that would bother me much more than it does now. When I was younger, like if I read a book and then I saw a movie and the character's voice wasn't what I thought it was almost like it ruined it for me. It was like, it's like he doesn't sound like that, But now that I'm older, I would say that bothers me less for whatever reason, or they do a better job of kind of matching the voice. Maybe, I don't know, but I can't remember the last time that's happened in my adult life. Whereas as a kid, I remember often hearing the voice of somebody and just being like appalled by it.
Well, with somebody that does a lot of Zoom meetings where nobody's camera's on every single day, and then all of a sudden somebody flips the camera on, it's always funny to me to be like, I didn't think that's what you would look like based on your voice. So, all right. Well, we're going to jump back in here and for closing the show here. Kevin asks, back to cigars for a moment. Will we see the brush foot make its appearance on more Aganorsa cigars? He loves the shaggy foot cigar.
I would never say never. I would say there's no plans to. Again, I think that so I love that cigar, and I think it stands out in the line for that reason, in our lines for that reason. And I think it's a great cigar to experiment with because you get the opportunity to really see how the wrapper affects the flavor of the cigar. You kind of taste the binder fillers, and it wakes up the palate, and then it hits the wrapper, and it becomes more complex and balanced and nuanced. But that is, the average consumer, I would say, is scared of that. They either think the cigar is broken, or they think, why does it look like that? And unless somebody kind of forces them into it, they're not going to smoke it. And so I'm glad we have it because it does well for us. And with those consumers that are interested in that kind of experience and who are more knowledgeable, they tend to go for that cigar. But again, our goal is to be able to appeal to the largest amount of people possible. And having that brush cigar is important because it helps us appeal to a certain group that really love that. Yep. But there's only so many people that like that. And so I don't think we need to have more that utilize that, at least for the time being. You never say never. We may come up with something and be like, oh, this is perfect for a brush foot, but at the time being, there's no plans to extend that particular format.
Now I got to ask, because it's always been curious to me. There's a shaggy foot, there's a closed foot, there's a brush foot. How do you guys make, after the cigar is rolled, is that when you put the cut lines in for the brush, or do you put the brush lines in before the wrapper goes on?
No, the on the brush foot, they remove it from the cigar. On a shaggy foot, they just don't cut it. So they roll the cigar basically with the wrapper on, and then they just
Correct.
don't. And then you have the tobacco kind of jutting out all over the place. In the case of the brush, the wrapper is removed. The way I've seen it done is they remove it, after the fact. And then on the closed foot is, again, you just don't. The wrapper, in that case, the binder and fillers are cut, but the wrapper is not cut. So it's just a little bit different procedure for each.
So the mentality behind that for Aganorsa is you want people to understand what the taste of the filler, the binder, and then judge the taste when the wrapper comes in, correct?
Yeah, it's basically, you light it up, it wakes up the palate. It's not exactly balanced. You can pick out some specific flavors there, because they're dominant, and then it's the wrapper, and then you see that evolution. And I think somebody that's really into cigars enjoys that. They're like, oh wow, yes. I love to see this. One, they can taste more in the cigar, and so they can appreciate that. And two, they're interested in different experiences and that type of thing. So for that person, I think it's great, and they'll really enjoy it. For your average guy that doesn't smoke cigars very often, I think that's a hard sell. I mean, they just, well, what do you mean? Why isn't there a wrapper on it? Oh, it's broken. I mean, it's hard. You have to kind of explain. It's the same thing with Lanceros. Like, we make right now one Lancero, for ourselves, and that's it. And it's because I love Lanceros. They're great. It's a wonderful cigar. It's so hard to roll. You need a high level roller to make them. They're
Lancero guy here.
Yeah, but they don't sell. They don't sell. They just do not sell. There's only one store in America that can say that they honestly have that as their best selling size, and that's, I think, Stogie's in Houston. And then besides that, I've never met a store that can honestly say that a Lancero is even in their top 5 SKUs, ever in the time I've been doing this. And so it's not a popular size for that same reason, is that there's a certain amount of people that really like it. And then beyond that, they look at it and they just kind of go, that kind of looks effeminate to me. And that's just how they just can't see themselves walking around holding something like that. A lot of this comes down to that. Like in the brush foot case, it just looks, I think it's intimidating. In the Lanceros case, they feel it's effeminate. I mean, they look at it and go, that looks dainty and it looks long.
Looks like a Virginia Slim.
Yeah. I'm telling you, that's in their head, is that they look at themselves in a crowd of people smoking that and look at what that is going to be perceived as. And for them, it's a bad connotation. And you can explain to them all day long about how good it is and what a great cigar it is, and that's not the case. But in their head, they just, So again, you just have to accept the realities of these things, and you try to educate and you try to build. But in the meantime, you got to deal with the fact that we sell more 880s than all the Lanceros the company's ever made for everybody ever.
That shocks me. I mean, something that big just doesn't feel natural in the mouth.
Ours is tapered, to be fair. It is tapered.
No, and I totally get it. And you know what? I've had so many manufacturers, because I'm a Lancero nut. I love Lanceros. And I've had so many manufacturers go, you're the guy that buys the boxes then. Because I do. I have about 3-4 boxes of Lanceros in my humidor.
So but I'll tell you what's wrong even with you. How many times do you buy the same Lancero again? Like you bought a box of XYZ Lancero. How often? When would be the next time you would buy another box of that same Lancero?
So, great question. I have 5 boxes of Lanceros in my humidor right now. 3 of those are always in my humidor. When I get down to about 5 left, I buy another box. But again, anybody that knows me, my close friends will always will totally attest this. I will always smoke a Lancero over any other size because I am a firm believer that a Lancero gives the best wrapper flavor. And when you don't have the binder filler, a Lancero showcases the wrapper. For instance, you have the Casa Fernandez Lancero. That is a fantastic Lancero that really showcases that wrapper. Amazing. If you go to an 80 or like 60, I feel you lose that beauty of that wrapper flavor.
Have you smoked the 80?
I haven't. I'll be honest with you, but at the same time, so explain. So why am I wrong in that mindset?
Well, my original point, just to go before I is the Lancero smoker tends not to be too brown. You're one of the most loyal ones I've ever heard of. You have 3 regular rotation Lanceros. That's amazing. Most of the time with a Lancero guy, he buys a box of Lanceros, and if he really, really loves them, he'll buy another box. And that's about as far. And then they move on to the next Lancero. They're not brand loyal. They like the size. They don't like particular, like any brand of. No, I mean, again, with exceptions, obviously, but I'm generally speaking. So that's the problem is that 1, there's not that many people that like them. And 2, they're not brand loyal. They'll bounce around. Whereas the 8x80 smoker, that's literally all he smokes. He doesn't smoke anything else. Maybe occasionally, if there's nothing available, he'll have some other cigar. But so that's the first thing is that in terms of which consumer do you want? You want a guy that will occasionally buy your cigar a couple times a year and rave about it, or do you want to have a guy that you never hear from ever and he buys the same cigar every single day and is very happy and that's it. But to the point with big ring gauges. I'm not I like a 46. And, I'm like a 5 5/8 by 46. That's 48. That's really my sweet spot. Yeah. And I like Lanceros too. Lonsdale's a great size. I kind of like that's my range. But that said, you can make a cigar as flavorful in a big ring gauge as you can in a smaller ring. You just have to blend to the size. The problem is that when those big ring gauges first came out, manufacturers were like, these gringos are nuts. They don't know what cigars are. And they would just jam more filler tobacco in it. They wouldn't blend to the size. They would just and so they weren't very good for the most part because they were just packed with more filler tobacco that wasn't blended to the size. We blend to the size. And on the Torch, for instance, the 70 ring gauge one, in terms of flavor, is the most flavorful. It's not my favorite, and I don't smoke it very often because I don't like the size. I find that size to be uncomfortable for me. But flavor-wise, I actually find it better than the other sizes. I like it more. It's really well balanced. And again, it's blended to the size. It burns cooler. So I mean, I don't think inherently a smaller ring gauge is better in terms of flavor. And I can name cases in which it's not. Would I say generally that's the case? Yeah, I would say generally that's the case.
And maybe for me, I was a cigarette smoker for 20 years. So maybe for me, naturally, I progressed towards the Lancero because of that. Because for 20 years, I was used to a smaller ring gauge. So I don't know, but I do find more enjoyment for me out of a Lancero. Plus, to me, it looks a little bit more elegant. Again, looks do kind of play a little bit into it, but I am obsessed with Lanceros. In fact, one of the first things when I ever talk to a manufacturer is, what is your Lancero? Do you make one? I've never seen it. How can I get my hands on it? So, with that said, Kevin has one last question for you. Kevin just flooding the question box. When you're at the factory, are you playing with new blends on your downtime?
Downtime? No, I mean,
my guess is he means he's asking if you actually have your hand in blending versus just tasting.
Yeah. So again, let me make it very clear. If you're not really in a factory quite a bit and have been doing this for a very long time, blending, what most people call blending is they pick a blend, which there's nothing wrong with, and which is what I do. I mean, like, I'm looking at the market, I'm looking what's okay, and I may have a sense of where we want to go for that particular line. And I mean, if you have something called Simtex and it's a mild cigar, that doesn't work, you know. So you know, it could be a great mild cigar, but it's not going to work with the brand. So those are the areas. But like, to say, oh, you know, it takes some of that Criollo 98 Chilamate Viso from Lot 7 or whatever, and put it in, you know, and add an extra leaf into the. I do not do that. I don't know how to do that. You know, and the reason I know I don't know how to do that is I've tried, because I don't do that enough. I would have to be there for years and years and going through every crop and just endlessly doing that, and doing that like kind of part-time for fun. I don't think that really improves you that much. I mean, I get the opportunity to smoke the components and things, and we do our Aganorsa Leaf experiences. And I mean, I can speak about different farms in terms of like some of the characteristics they had, but in terms of how to combine those in a way that will work, I don't. I let the experts do that. That's not something. To be honest with you, the hardest person to usually deal with is somebody that's in between. Usually, if there's some people, like, again, a great example is Dion Giolito. He goes down to the factory, he knows tobacco, he finds a tobacco he likes, he builds the blend around it. He tells them, okay, let's try it with, you know, a half leaf of Ligero from this farm, and you know, and then he just does it himself, and that's fine. Then you have guys that are like, listen, I just know what I like. I'm looking for something medium bodied with some spice. Give me some options. They'll smoke different options, and then they'll say, okay, this is the one I like. I really like this. You know, oh, what is it? Maduro? Oh, okay, I love Maduro, or something, whatever it is. The ones that are harder tend to be the ones that are in between, where they'll be like, I love Sumatra. Can we use Sumatra as a binder? And it's like, that doesn't mean anything. Like you like some cigar that or claim to at least use Sumatra as a binder. You know what I mean? So. I kind of, again, like I said, I'm not that good at most things. So I let the guys that know how to combine the tobaccos in a way that will achieve a particular result do their job, and then I do mine.
So since you had brought it up, really quick elevator pitch. When you, because like you had said, you're the first to say there's a lot of places or people that don't know the brand Aganorsa. And I think one of the things that really makes you guys stand out is your Aganorsa experience. So really quick elevator pitch, just to let everybody understand that when you post stuff with their local lounge, what is the Aganorsa experience, and why do you feel it's beneficial for cigar smokers to be there?
Yeah, so we have on our YouTube page, by the way, if you go to Aganorsa Leaf Experience on YouTube, you'll get there's a video called "What Are Fumas," and that's a great opportunity to kind of see that and see what I'm about to tell you. But basically, with the Aganorsa Experiences, it's meant to be educational. It's not meant to be a selling event. Of course, we sell cigars there, but it's to say, hey, how would you like to learn about Aganorsa tobacco? What makes it special? And also maybe hone your palate a little so you understand it better. And so what we do is you try two tobaccos that we use in all our blends: Esteli Criollo and Jalapa Corojo. Those two tobaccos are in every single blend that we'll make in some capacity. Different farms, different primings, everything else, but they'll always be there. It's like every cake has sugar and butter, except those weird vegan cakes, and nobody likes those. So you taste those two components individually. You kind of get the sense of what they contribute, their essence. You combine them kind of Cheech and Chong style, and then you go to a cigar that contains them, either balanced of the two, dominant Corojo or dominant Criollo. And it really is a great opportunity for a consumer to learn why he likes or doesn't like things, have more confidence in his palate. One of the things you hear all the time is, I know what I like, but I'm not an expert. It's like, well, all that matters is what you like. You're the one paying for it, so you should really know what you like and better why you like it. So we try to make people, so they leave and they go, what, I just love Corojo 99 from Jalapa. I love that flavor, and that will help. Get them the right cigar that they'll enjoy more, because that's the key. Is you got to get them something that they're going to come back to, and they have to really enjoy it a lot in order for that to happen. So the more you understand their palate, the better it is, and the more they understand their palate, the more you can understand it. And it's really cool. It's like the light bulb goes off. A lot of people have never done anything like that, and you tell them. I mean, we're not talking about blueberry pie and chocolate bunnies and all that stuff. I mean, it's like you're going to salivate when you taste our Corojo 99. You salivate on the sides of your mouth. You get spice on the tip of your tongue. And that's palpable. And the person, it's like goes off in their head. It's like, oh my God, okay, there really is something to all this. And there really is a difference in taste, and the tobacco you use matters. So I highly recommend it if your local retailer is having one, or if they're not in anytime soon, ask them to contact us or our local rep to set up an experience. And I'm telling you, every time I do them, we bring on a lot more new people to our Aganorsa Acolytes group, because instead of just trying to push them, hey, buy some cigars, get some stuff for free, here's a backpack or whatever. Which again, we make hats, we do all that stuff too. So that's part of it. But the main focus is let's hone your palate. Let's see if you like Aganorsa's signature flavor, and two, why do you like it, and what are you going to like from us if that's the case.
And I love the fact that you guys do that, because Cigar Geeks, it's a great advanced training course for palate understanding. So I love the fact that you guys do that. And anybody watching, if you get the opportunity to go to one of those, absolutely buy tickets, do what you can to get there. I'm a firm believer that what you're doing with that experience just broadens people's horizons. So, last two questions of the night. The first one is, who in history outside of Jesus and Winchell would you like to smoke a cigar with, and what Aganorsa cigar would you give them?
Friedrich Nietzsche.
Really? Nietzsche. Okay, I love Nietzsche. I think he's an absolutely fantastic philosopher. And what cigar would you give him?
Probably give him an Aganorsa Leaf, Connecticut. I think he was a pipe guy. I don't know how many cigars he smoked. You wouldn't want to overwhelm him. You'd want to focus on the conversation. You wouldn't want him to kind of get distracted by the cigar. You don't want, so I think Aganorsa, Connecticut would be a perfect blend for him.
And then last question of the night, can you give us your best Aganorsa Leaf arm?
That's how sad it is. That's the best one I can do.
You saw it here first, guys. I don't know that I've ever seen Terrence demonstrate the Aganorsa Leaf arm, but maybe
first and last.
Maybe we can get Terrence to do that on some TikTok. So Terrence, has this show been validated Aganorsa style?
It has been, absolutely. We've validated the show for sure. Some good validation. Well done.
Thank you so much, Terrence. Stick around for the quick end of the show here. So again, thank you to everybody watching the show on an amazing Thursday night. Terrence, who is just as good looking in person as he is on camera.
God help us.
And I will say is taller than I expected in person, but is also a very nice guy. If you ever have the opportunity to go out to one of their events, I strongly recommend you do so. And thank you so much for joining in for the night. Sponsors of tonight's event, of course, are Drew Estate, BAMF, ROCF Cigars, K by Karen, New Air Humidors, Christoph Cigars, McAuliffe Cigars, and the drink that you've been seeing me drink all night has been Axe and Oak. So thank you so much to the sponsor. Thank you so much, Terrence, for always being a great friend of the program, great friend to me, being willing to come on. And until we see you all again, smoke what you like, smoke as often as you can, and have a great rest of your week. Bye, everyone.
Cheers. Thanks.